Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. What happens when the world around you feels uncertain? When inflation rises, prices skyrocket, trade wars shake the economy, and fear begins to spread, do you shrink or do you rise? Because just like America facing inflation amid global conflicts, every single one of us faces our own personal trade wars, moments when outside forces push against us. And it's not the storm that defines us. It's how we decide to respond to it. When you look at what's happening in the world right now, prices climbing higher, inflation hitting families where it hurts the most, leaders clashing over trade wars, you can feel that sense of uncertainty creeping in. And I know many of you feel it not just in the headlines, but in your own lives. Gas prices rise, groceries cost more, your paycheck doesn't stretch the way it used to, and suddenly the future feels shaky. But here's the truth: uncertainty is inevitable. It's woven into the very fabric of life. What's not inevitable is fear. Fear is a choice. Fear is an emotion that we feed when we forget where our true power lies. Think about it. When inflation soars, people panic. They stop spending, they hoard, they let anxiety run the show. That's what fear does. It paralyzes. It makes you shrink in a world that's asking you to expand. But here's the shift. What if you saw uncertainty not as a threat, but as a teacher? What if, instead of pulling back when the storm rolls in, you leaned in with curiosity, with hunger, with the belief that you could navigate through it stronger than ever? History shows us that economies rise and fall. Leaders change, policies shift, wars begin and end, but the constant is the human spirit. We've endured depressions, recessions, world wars, pandemics, and countless storms, and yet here we are. Why? Because there have always been people who refused to be defined by fear. People who used uncertainty as the very fuel for innovation, resilience, and strength. When things became unstable, they didn't collapse. They adapted. And that's the lesson for all of us. You and I can't control the Federal Reserve or tariffs or global trade policies. But what we can control is our state of mind, our decision to focus not on the chaos, but on the possibilities hidden inside of it. Because there are always opportunities in uncertainty. Always. It's just that most people don't see them. They're too busy being blinded by fear. Let me tell you something powerful. Uncertainty is where growth lives. It's where transformation happens. If life were certain, if everything stayed predictable and safe, we would never grow. We'd never be forced to stretch ourselves, to reinvent, to discover capacities we didn't know we had. Inflation and trade wars might shake the system, but they also shake us awake. They remind us not to get comfortable. They push us to think differently, to act boldly, to build something stronger than what we had before. And yes, it's uncomfortable. It always is, because your brain craves certainty. Your nervous system wants safety. It's wired to avoid risk, to protect you from the unknown. But the paradox is that life's greatest rewards don't live in certainty. They live in the unknown. They live in the leap, in the willingness to walk into a storm believing you'll find a way through it. So when you feel that fear rising, when the news screams about inflation, when your bills climb higher than expected, when the economy feels like quicksand, I want you to remember this: fear is optional. You don't have to feed it. You don't have to let it dictate how you live, love, or lead. You have the ability to choose a different response. You can choose courage. You can choose creativity. You can choose to see possibility where others see only problems. Because let's be honest, some people will drown in this season. They'll let fear consume them. They'll complain, they'll blame, and they'll shrink. But others, maybe you, will rise. They'll use the same uncertainty to sharpen their focus, to adapt faster, to innovate, to take ownership of their lives. And those are the people who will come out of this stronger, wealthier, and more fulfilled, no matter what the economy does. So the question is, who are you going to be when uncertainty hits your door? Will you let fear run your life? Or will you step into the unknown with courage and determination? Because uncertainty will always be there. The only thing that changes is whether you let it break you or build you. When inflation rises, when trade wars escalate, when uncertainty takes hold, most people react with emotion. They feel panic, they feel frustration, they feel anger, and then they make decisions based on that emotional state. But what separates those who get crushed by a storm from those who rise above it is the ability to shift from emotional reaction to strategic response. Every crisis, whether in the global economy or in your personal life, is not just a test of your strength. It's a test of your strategy. Look at what happens when governments face turmoil. Leaders sit down, advisors gather around the table, and strategies are drawn up. Some policies succeed, some fail. But the principle remains the same. You don't fight chaos with more chaos. You fight it with clarity, direction, and deliberate choices. Now apply that same principle to your own life. When the pressure mounts, do you let your emotions run wild? Or do you stop, breathe, and craft a plan? Do you allow the storm to dictate how you move? Or do you set the course and adjust your sails with intention? Think about it. Inflation doesn't just raise prices, it tests patience. Trade wars don't just rattle markets, they rattle people's confidence. And yet, the ones who navigate these storms best are not the ones who complain the loudest. They're the ones who remain calm enough to ask, what's really happening here? What's the bigger picture? And how can I use this moment to make the smartest move possible? That's strategy. That's what transforms uncertainty into opportunity. It's no different in your personal life. When relationships hit rocky ground, when your health takes a turn, when your career suddenly shifts, the natural tendency is to let frustration drive the wheel. But frustration rarely leads to a breakthrough. It leads to impulsive choices, regret, and wasted energy. Strategy, on the other hand, is about zooming out, seeing the situation for what it is, and asking better questions. What do I really want here? What outcome am I committed to? And what steps will move me closer to that outcome instead of further away? This doesn't mean you ignore your emotions. Emotions are signals, they're energy, they're data. But they cannot be the steering wheel. They're the fuel, not the driver. If fear is driving your choices, you'll always end up in the ditch. If anger is steering your ship, you'll crash into the rocks. But if you use those emotions as signals to refocus your strategy, then you take back control. And here's the truth. Strategy doesn't have to be perfect. People get paralyzed waiting for the perfect plan, the flawless move. But in times of uncertainty, perfection is a fantasy. What matters is movement. A good strategy executed with courage will always beat a perfect strategy that's never acted on. Nations that wait too long to act in a crisis often lose their advantage. People who wait too long to take action in their own lives often lose opportunities they'll never get back. So the real question is, when life throws you into chaos, how fast can you shift into strategy mode? Can you discipline your emotions enough to step back and say, okay, I can't control everything here, but I can control my response. I can design a move that puts me back in charge. Because that's what creates resilience. That's what creates breakthroughs. That's what creates leaders, not victims. Every setback is an invitation to become more strategic. Every challenge is an opportunity to sharpen your decision-making. Inflation will rise and fall. Trade wars will come and go. But your ability to remain calm, to think clearly, and to make moves based on vision instead of fear, that's what will determine whether you sink or soar. So the next time the storm comes, don't just react. Don't just panic. Step back, breathe, and strategize. Because strategy, not strength, is what turns chaos into victory. When inflation rises and the cost of living surges, people start to realize something they often forget during comfortable times. Money is fragile. The value of a dollar can shift overnight. What you thought was secure can suddenly feel unstable. That's the reality of any economy, and history has proven it again and again. But here's the truth. Your greatest asset has never been the number in your bank account. It's not the size of your savings. It's not even the paycheck you collect. Your greatest asset is your resourcefulness. Because resources come and go, but resourcefulness, that inner ability to adapt, to create, to innovate, can never be taken away from you. Think about it. During times of crisis, when money tightens and opportunities shrink, the people who thrive are not the ones who simply had more cash stored away. They're the ones who used their creativity to find solutions others couldn't see. They didn't collapse when the economy shifted. They adjusted, they reinvented, they found another way. And in every single one of our lives, there are moments when what we thought was certain gets stripped away. It might be money, it might be a job, it might be stability, and in those moments, it's not your resources that save you, it's your ability to be resourceful. Now, inflation and trade wars are big, global issues. But let's bring it home. Maybe you're sitting here thinking about your own situation. Maybe bills are piling up, maybe your job feels uncertain. Maybe you're worried about how far your paycheck stretches. I get it. That pressure is real. But here's the difference maker. Instead of saying, I don't have enough, shift the question to, how can I create more with what I already have? That's where resourcefulness begins. It's about tapping into ideas you haven't acted on yet. It's about using skills you've ignored. It's about leveraging relationships, networks, and opportunities that are already around you. When you believe you have no options, you stop looking. But when you train yourself to believe that solutions are always there, your brain starts to find them. And once you unlock that part of yourself, you realize you're far more powerful than you ever gave yourself credit for. I'll tell you something, some of the most successful people in history. It started with almost nothing. No money, no backing, no stability. What they had was hunger, creativity, and a refusal to quit. They turned limited resources into massive breakthroughs because they never relied on what was in their pocket. They relied on what was in their mind, their heart, and their spirit. Resourcefulness is also about resilience. Because let's be honest, life rarely goes according to plan. Inflation rises, trade wars disrupt markets, businesses fail, industries shift. If your security is tied only to having more money, then every time the economy shakes, you'll feel powerless. But if your security is tied to your resourcefulness, then no matter what happens out there, you know you'll find a way. And that confidence, that inner certainty, is worth more than any dollar figure. It's the reason why two people can face the same storm and come out with completely different outcomes. One person sees only loss. The other sees possibility. One person shuts down because they think they don't have enough. The other digs deep and discovers a level of creativity they never knew existed. The storm is the same, but the outcomes are worlds apart because resourcefulness was the deciding factor. And here's the best part, resourcefulness is not something only a few are born with. It's something you build, like a muscle. Every time you push yourself to find a solution when one isn't obvious, every time you refuse to accept excuses and instead look for answers, every time you choose to believe in your capacity instead of your limitations, you're strengthening that muscle. And the stronger it gets, the more unstoppable you become. So while the world debates tariffs and inflation and economic policy, while leaders argue over trade wars, you have a decision to make in your own life. Are you going to sit back and complain about what you don't have, or are you going to rise up and create with what you do have? Because no matter how shaky the system becomes, your resourcefulness is the one thing that can never be devalued, never be taken, and never be lost. When you turn on the news and hear about inflation skyrocketing, interest rates climbing, or a trade war disrupting the markets, it's easy to feel like your entire future is out of your hands. You watch numbers rise and fall, and you start to believe that your destiny is tied to those charts. But let me remind you of something powerful. The real economy that determines your future isn't the one in Washington or Wall Street. It's the one inside of you. Your personal economy, built from your mindset, your habits, and your ability to create value, will always be stronger than any global economy if you choose to develop it. Think about it. National economies go through cycles: growth, decline, recession, recovery. They always have, and they always will. But your personal economy doesn't have to follow the same trajectory. While others are shrinking, you can be expanding. While others are consumed by fear, you can be taking bold steps forward. And the reason is simple: your personal economy is built on choices, not headlines. It's shaped by how you show up, how you think, how you act, and how you adapt. We've all seen moments where the economy is booming, yet individuals are still broke, stressed, and struggling. And we've seen the opposite too. Times when the economy is suffering, but certain people are thriving, growing, and building new levels of wealth and freedom. Why? Because those who thrive understand that it's not the external economy that dictates their lives, but the internal one. They focus less on what they can't control and more on the habits and disciplines that compound into strength, security, and opportunity. Let's make it practical. If inflation makes everything cost more, most people immediately fall into scarcity mode. They start saying things like, "I can't afford this," or "I'm stuck." But your personal economy doesn't grow by repeating limitations. It grows by asking empowering questions. Instead of saying, "I can't afford it," you ask, "How can I create more income? How can I bring more value? How can I make smarter decisions with what I already have?" Those questions put you back in control because they force your brain to search for solutions instead of excuses. Your habits form the foundation of this economy. Just like a country needs a strong financial system to stay stable, you need a strong set of daily disciplines. If you consistently invest in your learning, your health, your relationships, and your skills, you are building wealth that no downturn can take away from you. The market may dip, but your capacity to create, to serve, and to lead doesn't vanish. It grows stronger with every intentional choice you make. And let's be clear, this isn't just about money. Your personal economy is also about energy, about fulfillment, about resilience. Because if you've got all the money in the world but no energy, no passion, no drive, you're bankrupt in the ways that matter most. But if you cultivate an economy of energy, by fueling your body, managing your state, nurturing your purpose, then you'll have the fuel to weather any storm, no matter how long it lasts. So while politicians argue over tariffs and economists debate inflation rates, you have the power to focus on the economy that truly matters, the one you build inside yourself, the one that doesn't rise and fall with elections or policy shifts, but rises and falls based on your daily choices, your belief system, and your commitment to growth. Because when you strengthen your personal economy, you stop being a victim of the global one. You stop waiting for leaders to fix things for you, and instead, you step into the role of leader in your own life. And here's the ultimate truth. The global economy will always have uncertainty, but your personal economy can be unshakable. It can be built on vision, resilience, and an unrelenting commitment to growth. And when that becomes your foundation, you'll never be at the mercy of what's happening out there. Because you've already created stability, power, and wealth in here. Pressure is one of those forces that either crushes you or carves you into something extraordinary. When you look at what's happening in the world, prices surging, trade wars raging, economies straining, it feels like pressure from every angle. Families feel it at the gas pump. Businesses feel it in supply chains. Workers feel it in their paychecks. And let's be honest, you feel it in your daily life when the cost of simply living keeps going up. But here's the deeper truth: pressure itself isn't the enemy. Pressure is a signal. Pressure is an opportunity. Pressure is raw energy, and you get to decide whether it breaks you or becomes the force that forges you into someone unshakable. Think about what pressure does in nature. It turns coal into diamonds. It takes something ordinary, something overlooked, and transforms it into something rare and priceless. And the same principle applies to us as human beings. The hardest seasons of your life, the ones that tested you, stretched you, and made you question whether you could keep going, were also the seasons that shaped your character, your grit, and your capacity. Those weren't setbacks, they were setups. They weren't punishments, they were preparation. Pressure never comes to weaken you. It comes to reveal the strength you didn't even know you had. Now, when inflation rises and people feel squeezed, what happens? Many panic. They let the weight push them down. They start believing they're powerless. But others, those who are willing to shift perspective, use the exact same pressure to rise higher. They see it as motivation to grow sharper, to create smarter strategies, to build resilience. That's the dividing line. Not whether there's pressure, but what you choose to do with it. You can let pressure paralyze you, or you can let it propel you. You can see rising costs as a reason to shrink back, or you can see them as a challenge to innovate, to find new ways to increase value, to stretch your resourcefulness. You can view uncertainty as the end, or you can treat it as the spark that forces you to become more than you've ever been before. It's not the pressure itself, it's the meaning you attach to it. Some of the most successful people on this planet didn't succeed because life was easy for them. They succeeded because life was hard. They had doors slammed in their faces, businesses fail, economies collapse around them, and yet they chose to see those moments not as signals to quit, but as signals to rise. The very weight that could have crushed them became the resistance that strengthened them. Just like muscles don't grow without resistance, you don't grow without pressure. So ask yourself, what if the pressure you're feeling right now isn't here to harm you, but to hone you? What if the financial squeeze, the uncertainty, the global chaos isn't a curse, but a call to rise up, to become more disciplined, more creative, more courageous than you've ever had to be before? Because let's be real, comfort never created greatness. Ease never made anyone legendary. It's the struggle, the wait, the fight that brings out the greatness within you. Pressure will always be there. Life doesn't promise calm seas. It promises waves, storms, and challenges. But you are not here to be broken by those storms. You are here to be built by them. Every wave that crashes into you is also lifting you higher if you decide to ride it instead of drown in it. Every ounce of pressure is an invitation to step into a new level of power. So when you feel it building, whether it's in your finances, your career, your relationships, or your health, don't run from it. Don't curse it. Don't let it crush you. Instead, lean into it. Ask, how can I use this? How can this moment shape me into someone stronger, wiser, more unstoppable? Because the pressure you feel today is the very thing that can create the power you'll carry for the rest of your life. So as we step back and look at everything we've walked through together, I want you to remember this: life will always bring uncertainty. Economies will rise and fall. Leaders will clash. Trade wars will erupt. Inflation will soar, and sometimes it will feel like the ground beneath you is shaking. But none of that decides your destiny. What decides your future is not the storm, it's who you become in the storm. When uncertainty hits, you don't have to bow to fear. You can choose courage. When chaos surrounds you, you don't have to react emotionally. You can respond strategically. When resources seem scarce, you can tap into the unlimited power of your resourcefulness. When the global economy looks shaky, you can strengthen your personal economy because that's the one no one can take away. And when pressure comes, and it always will, you can choose to let it break you, or you can let it forge you into something unshakable. The truth is, you are far stronger than the economy. You are greater than any headline. And the moment you stop waiting for certainty and instead step into the power of your choices, your strategies, your creativity, and your resilience, that's the moment you stop being a victim of circumstance and start becoming the author of your own story. So don't shrink in the face of uncertainty. Stand taller. Don't run from the pressure, rise with it. Because this moment, no matter how chaotic it feels, is not here to defeat you. It's here to build you into the person you were always meant to be.